G'day, I'm Neville from TruFit Carpets, and today we're going to show you how to install our moulded carpets and underlay into an Australian Holden built Statesman. So it doesn't matter where we start to pull apart the car. I generally start with the back seat to make it easier to take the front seats out later.
So I'm going to undo the side sill panels next before I get the front seats out. This will stop scratching the panels themselves and make sure they're not damaged with the front seats.
So we're just taking out the rear seat of the car and the side sill panels and kick panels. We're going to continue by taking out the front seats, and then we're going to take out the console. The tool you'll need to undo the seats on this vehicle is an Allen key, but if you've got one in a wrench, for a ratchet type wrench, it would be a lot easier.
So this car, it's important to move the seat back so the runners don't stick too far out, so you can get the seat out of the vehicle. We're just going to continue by undoing all the seat belts. This is a 19mm socket for the seat belts.
Now we've got the two front seats out, makes it very easy to access the console and get to all the screws to undo that. So this car's already had a aftermarket carpet installed. It's had a lot of issues with that installation. They haven't actually cut a slot around the footrest to tuck the carpet underneath, which has made it bulge and not fit well on the transmission tunnel. Now we've removed all the old carpet out of the vehicle, we've found that there was no underlay installed into the back half of the car at all, causing it to be badly fitted. And now we're going to prep the area by cleaning out all the old dust and dirt that's still sitting on the floor, ready to install our new underlay. This is our heavy duty felt underlay, which we're going to install into the back of this vehicle. It's a good 12mm thick, about 1000 GSM per square metre, and that will bring it back to what the factory specs would have been for this car in its day. So we're just going to make sure that all the parts have adequate space around them to stop any pressure from pushing the console up, and make sure we can actually get the seats bolted in properly without any fluff or fibres getting into the threads of those. So I've also cut the underlay away from the computer that sits under the driver's seat, and this will prevent overheating and give us access to it for later if there's any electrical work. Now we have the underlay installed into the car, we can go by fitting the carpet in.
So I've installed this carpet and I've started with this at the back edge where it rises up to meet the rear seat. This will line up the entire carpet between the back edge of this seat here and these seat mounts at the front. So now I can start cutting bigger holes for the centre and not have to worry about things being exposed. When marking out the underlay of a car, I use a texter to make it easier to see, but whenever I'm marking out a carpet, I always use chalk. It's easy cleaned off and leaves no mark behind. So this particular car, I'm actually going to punch the holes for the carpet. For me, it makes it look a bit prettier and stops things from stretching and ripping later, but I will be hammering it onto a block of wood underneath the carpet. Be sure that I'm not going to make the airbags deploy. Normally I don't add holes for the seats until I install the seats, but because this seat runs on this nice little rail, the bolt holes aren't going to move and the carpets won't pull in the side edges yet. So I can go ahead and make it a bit easier and knock out these holes for the seats as well. To get the inside seat bolt holes, I'm making sure the outside's lined up first. I'm going to run my hand across the carpet to keep the carpet into place, and then I'm going to slide my other hand under the carpet to try and find the hole. Same process. Now I've found the hole with my finger, holding it on top. I'm just going to trace around the chalk hole, and that's where my hole has to be punched. Now I'm going to do the hard one, which is the inner seatbelt hole. This is also the area that most people get wrong, and for some reason I always find if you do the hole 1/4 of an inch lower than you think it is, it usually ends up right. Footrest can always look really good and really bad. My suggestion is always just do a little bit at a time and check how the mount sits. You don't want to cut too much off, but you have to be able to get the footrest on. Now we're coming towards the final stages where we're starting to put our center console back into the vehicle. It's very important that we line this up properly when we go to install it. And the other biggest thing is to make sure we get any of the big multi-plugs for the electronics plugged in. You leave one of these off and we'll have to take the whole lot out again to start. Console's all back in place, making sure that I've plugged in all the wiring for the power windows and the illumination for the shifter. I also had to make sure I lined up the shifter pattern with the shifter numbers on this particular model. It's actually adjustable. And now we're going to go to putting the front seats in and the front seat belts. Start by installing the seat belts while the seats are still out. The biggest problem I find is that people just punch a hole in it and then put their feet on the bottom edge of the carpet, and you'll find it pulls in. So it's always good to push down the carpet everywhere to make sure it's not stretched across the footwell, so we get the hole in the right spot and it doesn't pull down later on. Another trick you can use if you're not sure where the hole is, use your screwdriver, Phillips head preferably, and poke it through, and you'll find if it goes through the hole, that's where you're lined up.
Next up, we're going to start by bolting in the front seats. When installing front seats into a vehicle, I always find it easier to just start the front 2 bolts first, then line up the back 2 bolts, and then I actually put the seat through its full motion forward to backwards. That will just let the rails settle into place and makes it easier to tighten up the bolts. So we're almost complete now. So we're up to the stage where we're going to put in the front driver's kick panel and the passenger kick panel and the 2 side sills, and then we're ready for the back seat to go in and we're finished. So that's the final fit out of our one-piece moulded carpet into the Statesman. Main things to remember when fitting carpets is always cut the hole small to start with, or try and find it with a screwdriver. It can always be enlarged later, but you can't add it back in easily. Make sure that the carpet is lined up. Try and find a main ridge. We use the back seat support on this to make sure it's in place, so then all the moulding is correct throughout.